social media was just so new back then. Like,
Yeah.
you just didn't know how to engage with it. There was no partying under the stars anymore in Ibiza.
And I think that's the tricky bit, is that do you start because you love it, or do you start because you think it can be a job?
I think there are some very savvy people out there now that will know how to game the system as well. Some of the people I booked my first ever artists off are now the biggest booking agents in the world. If you'd gone back to me when I was 15 and going to my first raves and said, this will be your job when you're 41, my mind would have been absolutely fucking blown.
Mr. Mark Newton, we're live. What's cooking?
Great stuff. Yeah, I'm all good. Slightly tired, as I've just mentioned to you off air, but I have a young daughter and I'm a Newcastle fan, so the past 48 hours have been quite intense.
So before, this won't come out for a while, but in context, Newcastle won over the weekend and it was a big win. I don't follow football at all, so...
It is their first English trophy in 70 years. So it's been a big one. I have had 41 years of us winning absolutely fuck all. So that, yeah.
I bet they're still literally celebrating up there now.
Yeah, I was in the centre of London earlier and there were still people walking around with shirts on 2 days later.
Wow, that's insane. Well, congrats, Newcastle. Thanks for coming on. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
No, I'm really excited. We have met in person multiple times, but I don't think we've never had like a straight up conversation about life or anything like that. So I'm really looking forward to getting into this with you.
Yeah, same.
I'd just, for anybody listening, can you just give us a little bit of context of the multiple things of what you do in the music industry and outside of the music industry, and then we can just dig deeper into everything?
Yeah, of course. So I have been involved in the music industry from a really young age. I sort of did my first show when I was 16. I'm 41 now. So yeah, I've been working in the music industry, specifically electronic music, for a quarter of a century, which makes me feel really old. So in terms of projects that I have worked on, founded, co-founded, etc. I set up Hideout Festival in 2011 over in Croatia. I still am currently the festival director there. I am also the festival director of Field Day Festival, which is now held at Brockwell Park. I am the festival director of Snowbombing in Austria. I was one of the co-owners and the director at Broadwick Live for a number of years. If you don't know the name Broadwick, you'll have heard of our venues. They were the operators behind Printworks and now Drum Sheds, as well as many other venues on top of those two. And what else am I missing? God, I've got so much going on at the minute, I forget sometimes. So I've got Verso, which is music festival travel agency. So we run package holidays to festivals across Europe. We're looking to expand that worldwide at the minute. And the final business that I'm working on currently is called Oya, and that is a tech platform for food real estate. So we are essentially Airbnb for food businesses. And I set that up in lockdown when I couldn't put on any shows and wanted to work on something slightly different.
I want to thank you for that, by the way. On Oya, I want to dig in on how different is it working outside of the music industry on a different industry?
Yeah, it is very different. Obviously, you've got the pillars of any business. Like, you've got to be able to do marketing, you've got to understand operations, financials, etc. I think I had a nice sort of entry point into working on tech back in about 2016, 2017. Some close friends of mine founded a business called Melody VR, which was way ahead of its time in terms of what it aimed to achieve. And that was essentially a platform for live streaming and recordings of concerts and club events, but that could be viewed in AR or VR. Okay. So I was the third member of that team alongside the two founders, and obviously it opened my eyes a little bit to working in a different industry. It was still within music, and I used a lot of my music contacts there.
Yeah.
But the tech side of it was really interesting, and that opened up a bit of a, I don't know, like a wormhole as such with me in terms of, I was like, I'd been working in music for over 15 years at that point. I was like, wow, this is completely different, and it's really interesting, and I was just really like engaged by it all. I think when you've worked in any industry for a long period of time, you have your ups and your downs,
Yeah.
and certain things you just have bugbears that really annoy you. And what I can tell you now, having worked sort of across music and in tech and in hospitality on and off, like they all have things I absolutely love about them, and they all have things that fucking drive me around the bend, and they are just slightly different in each industry. Like you are never escaping. If you work in any form of creative industry, there will always, well, I suppose any industry really, but I've only sort of worked in the more creative ones. I think they're just going to be things that annoy the fuck out of you, and you've just got to deal with it.
No, I totally agree, and I think it's also is like when you've been doing it for so long, you can just get very jaded of like
Yeah,
just being doing. It's not even doing the same thing; it's the same issues just come up day in day out, and you're like, why is no one fixing these fucking issues? And
yeah,
it's like it is just is what it is, right? And you got to suck it up. And I'm sure it's the same in every industry. I've pretty much only ever been in the music industry, but I just know that it's everywhere really. You just got to learn how
yeah.
to manage those.
Yeah, of course. And what I would say is when I set up Oya in lockdown, I wasn't working on music shows because obviously
Mm,
everything ground to a halt. I was primarily just working in the Broadwick team at that point,
yeah.
and we didn't have any shows for the best part of a year and a half, 2 years. And I think that did setting up Oya did keep me sane to a certain extent because from the music side of things, all I was doing was booking lineups and cancelling them and rescheduling them.
Yeah.
And we just remember just all of us being on Zoom calls constantly going, are we ever going to get any shows away ever again?
This episode is brought to you by the one and only Symphonic. Symphonic is the distribution platform that allows you to keep 100% of your royalties and rights. With Symphonic Starter, they will distribute your music to over 200 platforms like Spotify, Apple Music, TikTok, and even Beatport. Split your royalties with your collaborators for free, get paid when your music is used on YouTube or Instagram, and access real human support when you need it. Use the code word WCP25, that's WCP25, to get 25% off your first year. Hit the link in the description or go to symphonic.com. Now it's time for the podcast. Yeah, that was a crazy fucking time. Like crazy time. If we think about it, it's 5 years ago now, and you're just like, literally 5 years ago, we would have been shutting down this weekend, I think.
Yeah, it
Like,
is.
it's,
I've started to get stuff on my timeline popping up. My mate sent me like the first Zoom quiz that we did.
oh, wow. Yeah, dude, that was crazy times. It changed everything. And I think it's still a lot of recovering happening now, and a lot of changes have changed in the industry, in business, and a lot of new faces and a lot of old faces have gone.
Yeah.
Pre-COVID, you're setting up Broderick. What's the process of setting up a company that books massive shows like that?
I think it generally happens organically. I didn't found Broadwick. It
Yeah.
was my partners in it, Gareth and Brad, and then there were further partners that joined along the way as well. Um, but I think everything happens organically.
Mm,
I think it was, especially when I joined, Broadwick had been acquired by Global Media Group.
hmm
Global Media Group had wanted to build a festival portfolio to sit alongside their advertising business and their radio stations. And Gareth had approached me saying that they'd acquired Broadwick, which at that point was festival number 6, and Snowbombing. They might have had some other smaller events on as well. And did I want to join with Hideout?
Yeah.
And then I worked with the team there and the team at Global, and we just started adding more and more festivals into the portfolio.
Mm,
Um, but I think in terms of my journey, obviously I mentioned at the start I've been doing this since 1999. That it started off 150, 200 capacity, then it gets to 500, then it gets to 1,000, then it gets to 3,000, then it gets to 3,000 capacity shows across 2 cities, 4 cities, 5 cities. And then eventually it just sort of grows and grows, really. So yeah, it's been a really interesting journey. And I think getting into the business so early is what's allowed me to sort of do so much in my career today.
How much of how much of this industry is relationship based?
Oh, I mean, the deeper you get into it, the more it is,
Yeah.
because I've been working with people for some pretty much all of that period.
Mm,
Like some of the people I booked my first ever artists off are now the biggest booking agents in the world.
yeah.
And I was booking small 500 quid drum and bass acts off them in like 2002,
Yeah.
2003. So I feel like, and again, I think that happens with the artists as well. Some of those £500 D&B acts are now selling out 50,000 capacity
Yeah.
arenas. Yeah, it is like, it's, I think again, yeah, it goes back to every industry, doesn't it? The longer you're there, the more people you've met, the more relationships you've built. Um, and whether it's a good thing or a bad thing, it is very much a relationship based industry.
Yeah, massively. Massively. I guess obviously Printworks is no longer. Um how was the time whilst you were working at Printworks, working at that with that team? It was quite possibly the most talked about venue events of the time. Um, what's the pressures that holds as a
Um,
team?
yeah, I mean, I absolutely loved it, and I
Yeah,
think all the team that were involved in it would say the same as well. Obviously, those guys are working on getting the venue back up and in its new guys next year, which will be really interesting to see. Because I think they're also going to be solving some of the problems that we experienced operationally.
yeah,
That we weren't able to first time around. Like, look, it was a printing press. It wasn't designed to have 5,000 customers taking a piss.
yeah,
Do you know what I mean? It had a drainage system probably cut out for like 30 blokes that were working on site overnight, etc. So like there were like really big operational headaches, given that it's a space that wasn't meant for the use we put into it. But
yeah.
look, again, that is something that did happen organically as well. I remember going to Star Wars Secret Cinema
Hmm.
to this venue, and Secret Cinema hadn't announced what the location was. I'd never been to Canada Water before. I went in there. I saw the Millennium Falcon fly down what became one of the press halls, and I was like, "Fucking hell, this place would be amazing to put on parties here."
Yeah,
And then Simeon, who's now one of the directors at Broadwick, he was working for his own business at the time. He had approached the LWE guys about putting some parties on there.
yeah,
We'd also been put in contact with him, so that first season was ourselves, LWE, and Simeon's business working on it together. And I mean, it did have its challenges to begin with. Obviously, it's not a space that was built for putting parties on, but it is such a sort of awe-inspiring backdrop when you look at it. And I feel like we went through quite a lot in terms of the different steps of the venue that if you went to the first show and the last show, you would be able to see it all. But if you were going there continuously throughout that period, you might not appreciate how many changes we made
yeah,
in terms of that. I remember at one point, quite soon into it, we wanted to have a live music space within there, but because of the balconies that were in the press hall, that sort of blocked people's view. And we knew that without the balconies, we would have an amazing live space. And it was so unique, we'd get loads of great artists playing there.
yeah,
Um, so we basically had to take the roof off the left-hand press hall, get some mad mechanical cutting machine in, and chop the balconies away. And we did it all in like a 2 week period in between, like, I think it was in between the New Year's Day show and reopening again the back end of January. And I
Jesus.
remember just getting some photos sent to us where it was like there was no roof on the venue. The venue was absolutely mashed up with like just machinery. And it's like, are we realistically going to turn this around in time? But I mean, I think we had a team of really ambitious um, people
Yeah.
that wanted to make that venue the best venue it could be and the best venue in the country or the world. And I think like everyone sort of focused on it. Like by the end that last season that we did, we had I can't even remember how many shows we were putting in there, but there was like a Thursday show, Friday show, Saturday show, and the Sunday show. So at points we were doing like some weekends we were doing 20,000, 25,000 customers through the door, which is absolutely unbelievable.
Yeah. It's crazy. What's the cost of that? Like, what are you running at cost wise of like just purely opening the doors?
I couldn't tell you exactly what the number was, but we are talking like a lot,
Yeah.
like six figures minimum
Is
at
that per
points.
night just to open the doors?
Yeah, yeah. It's just like that sort of operation is so expensive. And like again, if you look at the space wasn't designed to have that many
Yeah.
customers in there. So there are so many nooks and crannies that have got to have security on there. So like
Yeah.
like you're probably looking at like 200, 300, 400 staff in there every show. So you're paying them to work the 10, 12 hours of the show plus the setup time plus the break time. So you look at like your staffing bill alone, and then you've got to look at all your tech production that you're hiring in. Those screens that we used to put in there were obviously really expensive. We wanted to
Yeah.
make sure we had that the best production that was available to us. Like, yeah, like the
Was it a build in, build out situation that every time it was a build out, or was it constantly there?
no, it varied really. Like the venue itself was used for corporate shows
Yeah.
during the week. So where possible, we would be able to drape things off, just hide it all. Like there were some elements of it that were brought in and out, but where possible, you just try to leave as much in as you could because obviously it's always a cost to staff people to bring them in to do that.
Yeah. No, I couldn't even. And then you've also got talent costs, which is
Yeah.
crazy as well.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. If you're doing that level of capacity in London, which is people's sort of biggest or one of their biggest sort of club plays of the year,
Yeah.
yeah, there's all the associated costs with that as well.
What was the most amount of people you had at one time,
Um,
or was there a strict cap limit?
yeah, yeah, there was a, like obviously when you're operating something on that scale, you have to operate a really strict capacity limit, because like all eyes are on you at all times
Yeah.
essentially.
Totally. Yeah. Yeah. What was the cap? Was it 5 or 10?
Five, yeah.
Yeah. It's crazy because although 5,000 people is a lot of people, right? From post COVID, 5,000 cap venues are kind of normal now, right? It's kind of like the norm of what's happening nowadays, that like every show is 5 to 15,000 cap in most cities. Why do you think that changed? Like what was the change in that?
I think what people want to consume has changed. I think I think COVID's a big impact on that cost of living. People are more concerned about sort of their wellness and well-being. I think, and again, like social media, that whole sort of capturing the moment.
Yeah.
People want to, if they're going to spend their money to come to a show, they want to be able to show that they've been there afterwards. And these bigger capacity events, if you're only going to go out once every 2, 3 months, you want to go somewhere that has the best production, has the best artists, etc. So yeah, I think COVID was a contributing factor to that, but I don't think it was the only factor. I think things had started to change before then anyway.
Yeah. Which also then adds to the rise of the festivals, right? More and more festivals pop up here and there. Talking about festivals, Hideout, you started. Day one, you decide to do a festival in Croatia. can you like talk me through this whole process? I think people are really interested about that because Hideout has been a festival that has been around for a long time, but also has kind of gained credit in the industry as like one of the like tastemaker festivals over the years. So yeah, I'd love to kind of get your insight of from day one to now.
Yeah, I think obviously that's 15 years, so it's going to be quite a
Yeah.
long insight. Um, I think again, it's something that happened quite organically. Like myself and a few of my business partners, we've been running shows in Ibiza.
Yeah.
We decided to step back from Ibiza and wanted to do something new.
Why
Um,
was the step back from Ibiza?
Falling out with the venue that we were in, rising artist costs.
Yeah.
It was just becoming harder to work there, and we wanted to do something different. And we'd heard a lot about Croatia. I think before we went on the first site visit to see the location for Hideout, none of us had been to Croatia before,
Yeah.
but we'd had a lot of friends that had been going there. It had a buzz about it. The Love International guys were there when it was where their previous iteration of the festival, which was called the Garden. Um, then the Outlook boys were over there as well. I'd been working with them on some stuff previously, so I think we wanted to do something different. No one was doing something with a more accessible edge. I think everything was these sort of quite cool niche. Not saying Hideout wasn't cool or niche, it was just more open in terms of the music genres it represented. Like, look, the first year of Hideout, we had too many DJs. We had Eric Prydz, we had Animak, we had Sven Bass. Like,
Yeah.
no one was doing that in Croatia at the time. Um, and we paired up with the Warehouse Project because we were working with Sam, Sasha, and Rich and Kirsty at that point
Mm.
too. And we were just we thought there was an opportunity there to do something different and do it on scale.
Yeah.
And we went and looked at the site. It worked for what we were imagining. We kind of, my thoughts behind it when I had the idea for the festival was, can we create something that feels like Ibiza was?
Yeah.
Because at that point, 2010, when we started planning, is when the restrictions started to come in quite heavily. Um, I mean, like the roof had been on the Space Terrace for a while then. The roof had been on the Amnesia Terrace for a while then. Like I was lucky to catch both of those spaces before they had roofs on top of them.
Mm-hmm.
But there was no partying under the stars anymore in Ibiza. It started to be a bit more commercialized and a little bit stricter. And we were like, can we get all these artists that are headlining in Ibiza and put them in a setting which feels like Ibiza used to and is cheap and affordable, and you will pay. I think the first ticket price was 100 quid, 99
Wow.
quid, and we were like, can we do 4 nights, 99 quid, so 25 quid a day, and you will get to see the Ibiza headliners in Croatia, open air, and that was sort of the ethos that we wanted to approach it with.
Yeah. And how much is it now to go?
Do you
I'm
know what?
I'm on the
Not
website now. It's still not much. It's still
no.
not that expensive.
Yeah, I know. Like you would think it would be a lot more than it is. I think on the current tier for this year, we might be about what 170, 180 quid. You can see it. You'll be able to
Yeah,
see it in front
you're
of you.
189 quid on the current tier. The first two tiers are sold out, but the early bird is 159. Like
Yeah,
for a festival that's been going that long, that that's not a crazy jump of like
yeah. It's still
costs.
it's still 30 quid a day because we're 5 days now.
Yeah,
So
wow.
30 quid a day is still affordable. Like when you look at if you go to Ibiza now and you're going to the top shows in Ibiza, 100 quid, 150 quid a show.
Just to start, like that's you're not putting in like obviously there's travel costs, right, for people in Croatia. There's a travel cost for people in Ibiza though, but like when you're going to a festival, you're there all day and all night, right? Like when in Ibiza, it's like you're going to a night for 5 hours max nowadays. It's like you got Uber costs, you got food costs, you got drink costs. It's crazy expensive. I don't know how people afford it. generally. Like Ibiza nowadays is fucking ridiculous. It's great, but
Yeah,
it's so expensive. So
yeah,
expensive.
yeah. It is. It does feel like that younger audience is now a little bit alienated from it, and
Yeah.
they are exploring Croatia, they're exploring Albania, and other sort of not necessarily hidden gems because they're all quite sort of well known now, but just going places where you will get a bit more value for money.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, totally. Did Snowbombing come before Hideout?
It did. So Gareth, who is the founder of Broadwick,
Yeah.
that was the first thing that he set up. I'm pretty sure it is. I'll have to ask him in the office tomorrow, but I'm pretty sure it was the first thing that he ever did.
Yeah.
That was 99, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think this is the 26th year this year. So that's in 2.5, 3 weeks from now. So yeah, it's quite interesting in terms of the portfolio of festivals that I now am the director of. Like we're all old. Do you know what I mean? Field Day's like 18 years now. Snowbombing's 26. Hideout's 15. It's not that I don't work on new projects as well, but I think like there's something to be said about festivals that have lasted this length of time, that there's definitely USPs to them that
Totally.
have meant that they've been able to continue for this long.
Totally. And I think it's also, it's, in my opinion, it's very much experience based. It's what is the customer getting that makes people want to go back every year. Like I live 15, 20 minutes from Glastonbury and I was brought up going to Glastonbury Festival, and the experience you get there is just worth every penny. Like
Yeah,
it's not like there's nothing hard about Glastonbury Festival. Like all the things that are hard makes it the character, like getting flood out in your tents and like traipsing around in the mud all weekend if it's pissing down with rain. Like that's the fun part of Glastonbury. You know what you're gonna get, right?
yeah,
And I think building experiences on festivals for people, they're spending a bit more cash. Like it's making memories again. And I think we did that for years in clubs, right? In sweaty boxes, in all night longs. And I think now a festival is where people want to go.
yeah, yeah. I think that I love all elements of sort of the different ways that we go out and party. Like
Yeah.
Glastonbury was the first festival that I ever went to, so like
Mm.
everything has been a massive fucking disappointment since that point.
Exactly. Yeah. I've played Coachella a few times, and when my first time playing Coachella, and this is not me shit talking Coachella. Like I feel very blessed that I've been booked to play Coachella, but the first time I played, I think it was 2017, and I'd never been before, so I was just getting super hyped up. Like everyone's like, Coachella's the best festival in the world, blah 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 blah, and I'm like, I've been to Glastonbury, I've for like a lot of my life. Like for it to be the best festival in the world, it's got to top Glastonbury.
Yeah,
And you rock up, and it's like nothing. Like it was probably a 2 out of 10 in comparison to Glastonbury, and I think having Glastonbury as your like first experience, it sets the bar pretty high. But that also, tell me if I'm wrong, I'm pretty sure that sets the bar for you to create an experience for people to the festivals that you own and you run.
yeah, definitely. I think you're never going to be able to replicate anything close to
Of
Glastonbury.
course, of course.
But it's then going, well, what is your experience that you are selling to these people?
Yeah.
Like, what makes you unique in what you do? Like, what are the drivers where people will continue to come back to you, or where people will tell their friends and their friends come? And I think each of the festivals I work on has something that does that for them. That I think, especially with Snowbombing and Hideout, it is the locations. Like,
Yeah.
obviously, what we produce is done to a very high standard, production wise, artist wise, etc. But look, if you're in an amazing resort in the Alps and you can go and see, like, say this year, see the Prodigy play in a forest underneath these huge snowy mountains, or go up to the mountain during the day and see loads of acts playing on a stage up in the mountains themselves. Like, that's just a unique experience that you just don't get to see every day. And I think with both Hideout and snowbombing. There are loads of other similar options now that weren't there when we started out.
Of course, yeah.
But we just want to make sure that ours have the best production values, have the best artists, and the most sort of carefully considered. So if people want to go party on the beach with to party on the beach in five huge outdoor super clubs,
Mm,
we are the number one. There's nowhere else that you're going to be able to do that. If you are going to go into the mountains and party, we just want to make sure that that experience that we're providing is the best way to do it. Obviously, say Tomorrowland, they've got their snow event now,
yeah.
and I imagine they've got cuckoo clocks flying around coming out of the top of the main stage and like dragons breathing fire. But that's just not our vibe. Like, I
Yeah.
mean, like that will be a very visually impressive show. I have no doubt about it. And fair play to those guys for doing what they do. But like for us, we want it to be the best event for that the people we're trying to target.
Mm, yeah, no, totally. When sitting down as the team, you're the director of these festivals, so there's a lot of responsibility on your head. Like, what is the role as a director for you on a day-to-day basis?
It is managing all the different departments, really. I think I lead heavily on the creative, the marketing, and the artists. I've got a really solid team that works beneath me in all of those areas across all of those festivals. Um, I am not as heavily involved in the operations and the production. That is sort of passed off to either third parties,
Yeah,
freelancers, agencies, etc. Obviously, I have final sign off in like what the stages would look like, what the sound is, etc. But I lean on other people's experience there, and I think look, um, a director generally is only as good as the staff that work alongside them. Like
agreed.
you just need like someone really good in each area and like that you rely upon and you trust to make the right decisions on your behalf because you physically can't be over everything.
Yeah.
People just need to have the same sort of values as you do and know what you would deliver in that situation. So the more the more you work with that team and the more they know what you would expect, the more they don't have to ask you the questions.
Yeah.
They can answer on your behalf. But yeah, I think like I've always really enjoyed that sort of creative and curating process. So the look and the feel around what the events do themselves. So I would say that that's sort of naturally where I fit in.
Yeah.
And I drive those teams a bit more on that side of things. But then, yeah, overall, I've got all the different departments feeding into me, and ultimately, I am managing the budget of the events, everything that's going down there, but with a really strong team beneath me.
Interesting. How has marketing changed over the last like 5 years for you guys? Because I think it's changed massively in the scene, right?
Yeah, I think like more interestingly, it's like how has it changed since I started out? Because
Go for it.
I think Hideout, a few people, I remember this was probably 2012, 2013. A few people said to me, Hideout was the first festival that didn't do any print.
Mm,
And we launched the festival on Facebook. It was before Facebook pages, it was Facebook events and
events. Yeah.
Facebook groups. And Facebook didn't have a model on how to make money then either. So there was no meta ad suite or
Yeah.
any of this nonsense. You basically created an event, put it out to everyone in your group, and people would click attend. And I remember when we did that with the first Hideout, and there was like thousands of people attending. You were like, "Oh, this could work,"
That's
and
amazing.
we just didn't do any print for it. And like people said, like you had the first sort of essentially digitally marketed festival. Now, obviously, that is the norm, but that was like 15 years ago now. I think back to your question on like how's it changed over the past 5 years. I think that Instagram initially, and then TikTok following that has made everything a lot more visual, made everything a lot more video focused. I think it is a lot harder to sell events to people. I think Apple didn't help with that when they brought in all their rules around advertising. And essentially, they were trying to say it was for the customers, benefit, but it was because they weren't getting the slice of the pie.
Of course.
Um, so that just meant it was a lot harder to target your audience and work out what results you were getting. Like we're working with some really interesting companies now that are helping us now analyze our data a lot more and own our data offline and
Yeah.
well not offline but off the big social
Off the
media
platforms.
platforms.
It's so important. Like, I think even more so nowadays, but it's so important to be able to just own that data. It sounds so like, I don't know, it sounds so gross in the sense of owning data, because obviously there's
Yeah.
data is such a personal data is such an interesting word right now that's been put out as a bad thing. But I think as a business, even as an artist, it's just so important, because you're just pissing into the wind otherwise. You're just throwing noise out there, and if you don't have actual data, it's so hard.
Yeah, and look, I think back to when I first started going out, I was on everyone's mailing lists.
Mm-hmm.
Like I had no
Text
issue with,
groups, all of it.
yeah. Oh, well before text
Yeah.
groups. I think this was like I used to get sent a flyer through the post every month from Helter Skelter,
Yeah.
and I used to get a flyer from Compulsion that was at Bowlers in Manchester, and like people had databases then, but they were just like a lot more rudimentary. Whereas now you sort of have an actual customer profile for people, like,
Yeah.
and it is a bit on top. It's I can see why Gen Z are a lot more data focused than sort of our generation were. Like I remember like I wasn't particularly concerned about how my data was used for quite a long time online.
Yeah.
Like there are still probably photos of me on Facebook absolutely pissed out of my head on a night out, like slumped against the wall somewhere from when I was in my early 20s because it was social media was just so new back then. Like
Yeah.
you just didn't know how to engage with it or behave. But I feel like Gen Z now are just a lot more sort of social media savvy and data savvy as well.
Which isn't a bad thing at
No,
all.
no, no, definitely not.
Especially like I think social media is judged by so many aspects of our lives that like your employers are checking your social media, like it can affect everything from relationships, jobs, life, like everything. And I think that the least you put online as a general human being is probably better.
Yeah, yeah, I definitely agree with that. Like, obviously, you've got to present yourself, whether it's as an artist or as a business person. There is so much that you have to have online for the purpose of what you do. Like, honestly, I cannot express how much I fucking hate LinkedIn, but I know that.
Why? I, to be fair,
Oh,
I only set up a profile like literally like 3 months ago, and I've never logged into it.
yeah, oh, because I don't like social media for socializing. Why do I possibly want a social media channel for speaking to people about work? Like, but I also understand that how important it is in terms of if I'm fundraising for one of my companies or
Yeah.
want to make people aware of projects or need to source a service, it is really useful. But I feel like it is more spammy than any of the personal sort of social media networks.
Mm.
It is. I'm constantly getting hit up with various people that want to sell me things, and I'm the same. I just can't. I don't log into it that much anymore. And look, if I was going to be completely honest, I have someone that does my LinkedIn strategy for me.
Yeah.
They run me through post ideas. We have a sit down. We discuss what we're going to put out there. I just don't even log in. Like
Yeah.
I will, if something goes out there and there's a post there which sort of people are engaging with, I'll sort of log in and sort of chat to people on a level because I've generally put a post out about something I'm actually interested
Of
in.
course.
So
Yeah.
I'm happy to engage with people when we're having an actual valid discussion about something in work. But just being on there in the day to day, I know people with their jobs like that live on LinkedIn, and it's like I can't imagine anything more soul destroying or less creative in what we do than being on there all the time.
I agree. One of my best friends, she works in influencer marketing, and I don't know how she's done it. We joke about it all the time, but she's kind of like an influencer on LinkedIn. It's like a bunch of people follow her, and like she's got quite a bit of power where like she'll post something about a job, and like she'll get a lot of people like interested in, and it's just like I'm just like, how have you done that? Because it's such a dry network. It's like it's fucking awful, but I guess if it works, it works at the end of the day, and
Yeah,
that's it. You
yeah,
can't complain about it.
exactly.
Um, I want to. There's a lot of new producers, young DJs, people getting into the industry that listen to this podcast, and I know they're all going to be asked, how the fuck do you, as a new artist, how do you get booked on these festivals?
Um, it's the industry is a lot more professionalized than when I first started out, which I'm sure you know yourself.
Yeah,
I think you've got, even as someone younger wanting to break through, you've still got to be pretty savvy with what you do.
yeah,
Um, I think you need to make sure your online presence is looks and feels right. I mean, I don't think that is saying go out there and get, you've got to have 10,000 followers before anyone will engage you, because it's not that at all. But just making sure, choose the channels that you want to live on, that you feel most comfortable with, whether that's like your SoundCloud, your TikTok, your Instagram, like whatever you feel most comfortable engaging people with. I feel you've just got to have that quite professional. Make sure you're regularly updating content. Make sure music, if you're releasing music as a producer, make sure you're regularly putting stuff out there, even if it's unreleased. Make sure you're putting mixes out there, because I think there is still that disconnect between someone could be a great producer, but if they've not had the opportunity to play out much, they're not necessarily going to be a great DJ.
totally.
So I think you've got to show that you can actually put together a solid mix of not just your own music as well. Um, I think you've got to be in. I think back to what it was like when I was younger. People were out a lot in clubs, but there isn't the frequency of club events to be doing that anymore. So you've just got to be engaging with online communities more and make sure you're a face on online communities, whether that's on Discord groups or however. Again, it's how you feel most comfortable. But I think you need to be a digital native in terms of having your online presence. Make sure you're regularly updating your content. Make sure you're putting your music out there, and not giving up. I think is the hardest part, because you will get so many no's and so many people that will just ignore your messages. I think, look, eventually you want a manager, you want an agent, you want a record label, but you're not going to get that straight away. And don't be too concerned about that. Like, enjoy what the fuck you do first and foremost. Like, do it not because you want a career out of it, do it because you actually love doing it. And I feel like the people that can do that while still being sort of do their housekeeping enough to have nice socials. And by nice socials, I don't mean really polished or anything, but just regularly updated so people feel like you care about it. That is a big part of what you need to do. And also just keeping an eye out for any collectives that are doing cool things, any events that are looking for residents or DJ competitions. You've just got to be all over everything. And I feel like the people that are passionate will get there eventually, but it's just a lot more professionalized and harder to break through than when I first started out in the industry.
I think, yeah, I totally agree with you. I think it's also just pure saturation of like this. It's from when you and I both started, so many more people can see that being an artist can be a job. Like, and I think that's the tricky bit, is that does do you start because you love it, or do you start because you think it can be a job? And I think that's the difference. I think there's the happy balance that needs to be kind of understood when you're starting out, that you can be 10 years in and still not be earning any money.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And I think there are some very savvy people out there now that will know how to game the system as well, and not necessarily be the most talented, but they know how to build social media platforms. They know what people engage with and can go about it the other way. And look, there's not, I don't want to be a pessimist about that, because there are like, this is the sort of um, time that we're living in that
Yeah.
allows you to be able to do that. But I mean, if you look back, like, I think back to when I first started going out, not necessarily putting on parties. Like, most of the artists that I was going to see were sort of working class kids that had grown up in the late 80s and early 90s, had gone out partying, had fallen in love with the music, had got hold of some shit old kit that was kicking about that was basically created for a use completely different to what they were using it for. And look, I think if you look, you can hark back even further and look at the Chicago and the Detroit house
Of
scenes for
course.
that as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah.
And they just did it because there was nothing else to do. They found something they loved. They might have been working part-time or doing trades or something like that. And the majority of these kids were just working class lads. Unfortunately, lads at that time, because essentially it was more of a boys' club back then in the early 90s. Um, but they did it because they loved it and they had no other option.
Yeah.
Now, like you say, it's a career path, and it's a shame that it's got like that, because I think those working class artists that could have come through a lot more naturally back then just don't have the same way of breaking through like that. You don't have the cost of living is so high that you
So
don't have the
high.
ability to like jump and live in a squat with five of your mates in the middle of nowhere and just like be out partying every night. You've just got more responsibilities now. Like there's a lot of pressure on like 16 to 21, 22-year old kids to
Yeah.
be doing something with their lives, because you just can't bum it like a lot of people did in the 90s.
Yeah, and I think that is it, right? Is I was talking to Dr. Dubplate about it on the podcast, and it's everything is judged by numbers on nowadays in this industry, and whether it's right or wrong, it is what it is. And I think that takes a lot of the happy accidents that used to happen back in the day of like, oh, like summer records, right? The record of the summer, like that was never based on like just a big artist writing a fucking great record. It was based on generally some unknown artist writing an absolute banger and everyone going, fuck me, I need this record.
Yeah.
And I just think that happens less and less. How has that affected the way you guys book as a festival? Because as a festival, or as festival bookers, you need to sell tickets.
Yeah, I think our ethos has pretty much always been the same in terms of you work top down and bottom up at the same time. You go for the people that fit within the ethos of the festival,
Yeah.
that will sell tickets, and you then look at what artists that also fit within that ethos are breaking at the minute,
Yeah.
and whether that is you find them from Spotify playlists, whether you find them from people sending you tunes that you know, whether you find it on Radio 1, people being broken on Radio 1 shows. There's various ways that we find people, but I think we've always tried to bring through that next generation of talent. I think Hideout especially, and also shows like Printworks, Drum Sheds, the Warehouse Project, people don't give those type of shows credit for bringing artists through. But when you've got three, four different areas and you need to program them for 8 to 10 to 12 hours, that's a lot of slots that are available. You might have 30, 40 artists performing on one show.
Yeah.
You can bring through people at that stage. And I think there's always an air of negativity, I find, around people going, oh, these mega raves, they're just there to make money for the big headliners. But the amount of artists that I've had the opportunity to bring through, because we had a 1 p.m. slot in room 3, they wouldn't get that if it was just like a 500,000 cap club with a single room.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I think it's also curating lineups. I think what I've noticed difference over the years is that it's turned more so brand based. So you get the big labels that kind of have their own nights, and then they get to curate the lineups around festival stages, big events or something like that. And I think that's also where it's changed slightly, where back, and I don't want to sound like a fucking old man, but like back in the old Ibiza days, right, where it was very promoter led, where let's say We Love Sundays and stuff like that, like they were curating lineups that were very interesting because they had a core audience and they could, but they'd still put the headliners in, but they'd kind of bring new acts through. I do think it's harder nowadays. I do think as a newer act, it's harder to kind of get those opportunities.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I do think that curation element has been lost, and no disrespect to artists, but I do sometimes think artists aren't necessarily the best people to be doing the curation because
Agreed.
they just listen and want to have people around them that are doing very similar to them.
Agreed.
Whereas the nights that I used to like going to when I was younger were varied musically.
Yeah.
And look, it's something I've been thinking about a lot, especially sort of since I left Broadway. Um, I'd love to do something where I'm more involved in the creation and having a sort of club event that
Yeah.
is varied musically and people engage with it in a different way because you don't really see curveballs on club events anymore.
It's
Like, and I
so
used to,
it's so safe. Sorry to butt in, but it's
no,
such
it's fine.
and this isn't me talking shit on the industry. I'm part of it, right? You and I are part of it. Like but it's everything's so categorized that it's like I'm going to see a drum code event. I know exactly what I'm going to get. I have to know exactly what I'm going to get. Or I'm going to a Paradise Pie, or I'm going to a Metalheads party. Like you know exactly what you're going to get every time, and I don't think that actually curates great experience. People are having the best time, and I'm not kind of talking shit on those brands or anything like that. But I think like where's the oh fuck, I've never heard of this person, or fuck, I wasn't expecting that DJ, but they absolutely smashed it. Like that's what, in my opinion, is missing.
Yeah, because I think back to when I first started doing my own shows, and I would look at Fabric when Fabric first opened, like Fabric Live on Fridays,
Yeah.
and what Rich was doing over at Shibuku as well in Liverpool,
Ooh.
and that was sort of probably just before Warehouse Project launching.
Yeah.
And I remember just looking at those lineups and going, they're fucking amazing. There's
Yeah.
different music genres in each room. There's some curveballs on there. Like they actually felt more exciting because you just didn't know necessarily how it would work,
Yeah.
and you wanted to go and see if it would work or not. And look, that is something that I am that at some point I will do something that is a pure passion project, which is me just harking back to what I used to do. When I first started out as a promoter and what I was really like, what I used to love to see. But look, I'm pretty busy at the minute, so I don't know at what point that will be. But yeah, it's something I've been thinking for a long time now, like um, giving the curation back to the promoters because
Yeah.
there were some amazing club nights back in the 90s and the 2000s, and I feel like that has got a little bit lost along the way now.
I think also to give credit due where it's needed is like it's harder to be a promoter now. And I think it's like whether it's whether it's the promoter's fault, right? Like in a sense of they went the easy route, and I'm not saying that that's a negative thing. It's business, right? And it's like whether they were like, okay, well, this headliner is going to sell this amount of tickets, like we're just going to book that, right? And anybody below is just it can just align with that artist, so it's just easier to package. I don't know when that started. Really, I can't really recall when that was a moment in time. Whether that was the EDM when EDM was kind of popping through, or I don't know what that was. But I think also like the death of clubs nowadays makes it way harder to kind of be a promoter in a smaller sense of building like real culture in the local areas, which I think is what is actually needed to curate new interesting artists.
Yeah, it's again, it's that whole being able to take risks,
Mm-hmm.
which I think again, like I remember one of the first shows I did, I got my student loan check in for 3 grand, put on a show, absolutely fucked it, and then just gave the artist and the venue my 3 grand check, and then just had to get a pretty much full-time job around uni to cover the cost of what I'd lost.
Yeah.
But you just can't take those risks anymore, and I
No.
think that is where where people are missing. Like I remember when I was starting off at uni, and also before that when I first started out promoting, promoters would be 10 a penny.
Yeah.
People would just want to put on parties, whether it was 50 cap, 100 cap, 500 cap. I just don't think there's that appetite for risk there anymore, or the people feel like it's a viable option. I imagine becoming an artist feels like a safer option than becoming a promoter these days.
Well, I think, yeah, it makes complete sense because I think what is it that we're being sold online, right? Like, what are the new artists seeing online? They're seeing all their favorite artists going on private jets, playing in front of thousands and thousands of people. Like, you're not seeing the promoters do that. The promoters
Yeah,
are just posting flyers, right, and trying to market the next event, right?
yeah,
It's not as glamorous. It's people don't realize that there's even necessarily what a promoter is. Like,
yeah,
I don't think the art of a promoter is even being discussed as much as what it used to be. It used to be the cool kid if you were the promoter because everyone wanted to come to the party.
yeah.
It's not that anymore.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think like people just probably are a bit more pessimistic towards it and probably think that it's a company now,
Yeah,
which
yeah,
essentially it is when you get big, when it's bigger and bigger. Like all of the things I work on are
are big.
companies,
Yeah.
but like yeah, I don't know. Yeah, it's weird. Like that art of promotion and sort of curation has kind of been lost a little bit.
Which is interesting though, because I think like what the people that innovate the most are younger people because their heads, their ears are to the scene, that they're seeing everything, right? And they know like the trends. And that's the most interesting thing to me is why younger people aren't trying to put on parties because they could probably sell it more way easier because they've got communities. Like you're not, I don't know, I don't want to tell you what you are doing, but you're not going out every fucking weekend and or every night of the week, seeing what's hot and what's not hot on and who's building. Like I'm not
Yeah,
as
yeah,
an artist. You're just
yeah,
not.
that yeah. But again, it's tricky. Is anyone? Like I was in my early 20s, but I
Yeah,
just don't know if people in their early 20s are doing that as well. Because where would they go essentially? Like where do
yeah,
you go if you want? I could quite comfortably when in the early 2000s, if it was a Tuesday night, I would be able to name 5 places I could go on a Tuesday night and listen to new artists playing new music.
yeah.
And that just isn't there anymore. So are those sort of are those future promoters or future artists, are they just doing the equivalent of that but online now?
Yeah, I think that you hit the nail on the head. Is like venues are becoming few and far between. Like I speak to my team and I'm like, guys, like let's go do a Thursday party. We're playing Friday, Saturday. Let's go do a Thursday party somewhere else. I don't care about making money. Let's just make it cover the costs. Like, but there's just nowhere to do it.
Yeah.
And unless you're that massive artist that can sell 2,000 tickets and be able to throw your own event, if you know what I mean, where you don't need local promoters or anything like that. There's just no venues.
Yeah. So yeah, it's a weird place to be in, and I kind of don't know what the next step on is for this really.
Yeah, it would be really interesting to see a company like you guys to go, okay, like we as a company can get funding, right? You have the ability to get funding. I don't know. You might not be able to, but I'm just hindsight or the best case scenario is like, okay, in 4 major cities in the UK or wherever you want to go, we're going to open 600 cap venue. And whether it actually makes money or it just covers costs, but we're purely doing it for the culture. I think there's a level of some extremely successful artists, some extremely successful promoters that would be able to curate a space for acts to grow in those spaces. I think there is a thing, and I think there's also a situation where a lot of bigger artists want to play small venues again.
Yeah. But then in that situation, I find that interesting that you've said that because does that sort of take away the ethos of a small club if essentially all of these small clubs are owned by one central company that's based out of London?
I agree. It isn't. It feels wrong, right? But I no one's opening a 500 cap club that just off their back nowadays.
Yeah.
In England, anyway. In America, it's slightly different, right? I've got friends in Detroit. that own clubs and are thinking about opening more venues and in other cities, but like I don't know how you go back to it. But also, again, do people even go out?
Yeah. Do you want do you want to go back to it if like you it's not
Exactly.
could it be that sort of if we build it they will come mentality and then you build it
Yeah.
and no one comes and then you just left with another empty club. It is really tricky. It's like what it's hard to know exactly what people do want these days. Look, there's some really successful small clubs in London,
Of
like
course.
a
Yeah.
lot of, but obviously London's sort of its own sort of mini environment for the rest of the UK. And there are some like great pockets of clubs in the major cities as
Yeah.
well, like smaller venues. But that there more and more of them are closing, like Hopeworks in Sheffield,
Yeah.
Wire in Leeds. There just needs to be, rather than having a company go out there and be like the owner of all the small clubs, I think there just needs to be these key venues need to be identified and protected culturally.
Look at Motion in Bristol. Like, it's about to go, pretty
Yeah.
much. And you're just like, that is an iconic venue. It's been voted #1 club for, or in the top 10 of clubs in the world. And it's going pretty much. I think there's, it might not, but like, just think how much culture that brings to that area, that the city just generally is sad.
Yeah, and there is no cultural protection against that. It's
Yeah.
essentially a landlord that either wants to rent hire or wants to do some development. I can't remember which of the two it is. And although, like, look, I've signed a petition that in fact tens, hundreds of thousands of people have signed it, but unless there is someone at sort of a council or government level saying, no, this is important,
Yeah.
you can't do it. Like it will go essentially because it's a
Mm.
private property operated by a private landlord, and that's not necessarily the best situation to be in. But it's like it also sounds probably pretty pessimistic from my side, but unfortunately there aren't these protections there for those sort of
Yeah.
spaces where there should be.
I can't remember who I was talking to the other day, but they were talking about how there was a bunch of pubs in Ireland that were getting closed down, and it was pretty much exactly the same situation, right? That like you couldn't, people wanted to make more money and sell it on and do all of that, and you were losing the pub culture. So some crazy business person came in and was like, guys, the Irish government has legislation that if you turn your premises into a museum, you get funding from the government, and you can't be closed down. So you have all these pubs that turned into museums and like created like loads of like interesting artwork and made it kind of look like it's old again and kind of bring it back to like the olden days. And you got this massive pub culture again.
Yeah,
And I think it needs something like that, where these are institutions that actually, clubs gentrify areas. It's a fact, right? It's like the club starts in somewhere, and it gets popular, and then restaurants come in, shops come in, and then the apartments come in, and then the club goes, and you're in a new area. There has to be something that kind of changes that.
yeah. I think that the guys at NTIA are doing a really good job in trying to get that sort of protection in place. But ultimately, it does need to come from the very top down. There needs to be a want and a need for it to happen.
Yeah.
Look, I live in Dalston. It is the perfect example of gentrification, exactly what you've said.
Yeah.
That it was the cool place that people would go out and party in 15, 20 years ago. And now there is no way on earth you are getting granted a new late night license by by Hackney Council.
No, not at all. And that's Hackney.
Yeah,
It's crazy. It's crazy, man. Well, all we can do is hope,
yeah.
and it's not all doom and gloom. And
No,
I
no,
think that's the
it's
thing, is
absolutely not.
like I think with that is like you're seeing like the events you guys throw, and that is culturally amazing. Like the fact that there's more festivals and very successful festivals, and there's enough space for everyone. And the shit festivals, the shit clubs, they go right, and new ones come through, and that creates innovation. And I think like what you have done for the industry, although you're in the background, a lot, and you're not the forward facing artist and everything like that. Like, you've done a lot for this industry, so genuinely, man, I really appreciate it. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. It's a really nice thing to hear. And look again, on a similar note, there is still a lot of amazing new music out there. That there are a lot of great new artists coming out, releasing new music that you wouldn't have thought of 5 years ago. Like, so that is something to sort of keep people motivated and keep people inspired. And like, yeah, there are areas of the industry which have changed for the worse, but as long as people still want to go out, make good music and dance to good music, that's still always going to be there.
I totally agree, man. It's literally what you said at the beginning. In every industry, there's shit parts, and you've got to talk about the shit parts. Like, people have to be aware of that, but I think also people have to be aware of like the positives. And we've never been in a better time where people can earn money in this industry. And I think realistically, that's what we all wanted, is for all of us to have our passions pay our bills.
Yeah, if you'd gone back to me when I was 15 and going to my first raves and said, this will be your job when you're 41, and you will have owned numerous nightclubs and you would have put on numerous festivals all over the world, that my mind would have been absolutely fucking blown.
Yeah, man, I feel that. That's the perfect way to end this, dude. Thank you so much for coming on. How can people get in touch with you? How can people kind of follow you and follow the journey?
Yeah, obviously don't follow me on LinkedIn because it's not me. Hit me up on Instagram. That's probably the best way to do it. It's Mark Newton UK.
Cool, man. Dude, thanks so much. I hope hope the summer goes well. Hope snowbombing goes well as well. It's pretty soon, I think.
Cheers. Well, thanks for having me on board.
Anytime, mate. Anytime.
Cool. Cheers, Will.
Thank you, mate.
Take care, mate. See ya.
And that's a wrap. Big love to Mark for coming on. I really appreciate you all listening. Please share it. Please subscribe. If you are listening on Apple Podcasts, go watch it on YouTube. If you're listening on Spotify, you can watch it on Spotify, but watch it on YouTube. It's better. Big love. Till next time, people.